the Daily Ramble podcast.
Hello Hammers fans, David Moyes here and you're watching Claret and Booze. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello everyone and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick, this is my Daily Ramble. It's going to be a bit of the day after, kind of picking the bones out of that defeat yesterday, and there was a lot of frustration in the video that I did last night in the immediate aftermath of that game. Understandably, I think, it was an awful, tragic way to approach a game of football. I was incredibly frustrated, but I'm also frustrated with a lot. It isn't just David Moyes. It's the media pundits. It's some of our fan base as well. It's a complete refusal to accept the blindingly obvious. So I'm going to kind of go over some facts in this video, and I'd like you to give me your feedback at the end. As always, if you are new to this channel, please subscribe. It does help us, and don't forget, drop a like on the video. Only takes a second. All right. So what we're going to do is basically. I think you need some perspective when you're looking at a game such as what we were treated to last night. You do need some perspective. You need something to compare it against, because, yeah, fair enough, West Ham were facing Leverkusen. I even put a tweet out yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, harping on about how great Leverkusen are, because I'm not lying. They are a great team. They're a top team, but they are a team that's in the German league, and much of their fantastic record is born out of the fact that they are playing inferior opposition week in, week out, far weaker than what you'll find in the Premier League. Freiburg, for instance, who we've put to the sword twice, we really, really easily, and they struggled to a degree, 3-2. And don't forget, when you look at the possession stats that we suffered against last night, I think we had, what do we have? I think they had 75% possession. They average between 55 and 60. That's their average throughout the season. It's not like this is normal. I don't think anyone has played this deep and this defensive against them. No, they've not seen it. We were getting the piss ripped out of us on Leverkusen fan forums. I've seen a few things that have been sent through to me. We were having the piss taken out of us. And do you know what? We deserve it. I'm sorry, we do. But get some perspective. So we were lucky enough last night to have a direct comparison, and that's Atalanta. Now, look, Atalanta, they currently sit sixth in Serie A. They went away to Liverpool, the same as we went away to Leverkusen, and they beat them 3-0. Well, how did they do that? How did Atalanta dare manage to pull that off? Was it just luck? Well, look, I've watched the extended highlights, and I've watched a few post-match reviews on that as well, Liverpool ones, to find out exactly what happened. And look, they were conservative in their approach, and it's not like they were gun-ho or anything like that. And they did allow Liverpool to have the game, to have the ball in in non-dangerous areas. But they were aggressive out of possession. They had this fierce and combative midfield. But what they did throughout the whole game, they maintained quite a substantial forward threat for the entire game. They did not park the bus. And what they had like a direct and lethal counter-attack. And that yielded 7 shots on goal for them to Liverpool's 5. And Liverpool had 47 dangerous attacks to Liverpool's 49. So it was very even Stevens. The possession stats wouldn't tell you that story. But in terms of the balance of play and what actually happened when they was on the ball, they played with intent. And they won 3-0. They won deservedly 3-0. There was a Liverpool fan channel saying exactly the same thing. They deserved to win. They came at us, We had no answers. And like I said, that is a 6th place Italian team against one of the powerhouses that are, look, they're absolutely on or beyond Leverkusen's level. Liverpool are. They are. Leverkusen are not going to blow Liverpool away. That will never happen. So they're on that level. So while we're Atalanta, why did they believe that they could go to Anfield and do that when there's a second leg? Why didn't they go and just go, do you know what? We're just going to sit and park a bus, because they can be quite a defensive outfit, and we're just going to try and get the fixture back to our place, and then we'll try and win then. No, because they know you can't allow these teams to get momentum, to get in front of you, to do this. You can't do that. If you're going to have any chance, especially over 2 legs, you've got to knock them off their perch. That's the only way you can do it. And it's a far cry from how we approached that game, which, let's be honest, our game plan, it was a game plan centred around one word: fear. Fear of the opposition. A complete lack of belief that we could do anything other than sit and block this superior team in Leverkusen who have got this, record and this way of playing. Fear. But then, do you know what? That's fine from David Moyes' perspective. But when you look at the way that the team really stuck to their task and they really tried to implement that game plan, they bought into it. Ask yourselves mentally, how does a manager prepare a team to deliver that tactical vision on a football pitch? How does he do it? How do you get him to buy into a tactic and put in a shift like that to deliver such a fucking fruitless task? Well, I'll tell you how. They've absolutely got to believe that they are not good enough. That's the only option. They've got to believe that style of play is the only option available to them, and they are not good enough. So David Moyes has to set out to instill fear and a sense of inferiority in his team. And that's a far cry from the belief that Cresswell speaks about in this little clip from the 15-16 season, I think.
Yeah, just had a weird feeling. Like, as soon as I'm not saying we don't have that feeling now, but you were genuinely going into games, doesn't matter whether it was Man City and they had some team back then, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea. You were genuinely going into the game, we're going to win this game comfortably today. That's the feeling you had. Well, certainly I had that last year, Gin, was special, wasn't it?
Right, and maybe that explains why Kudus snatched at his chance as well, when you think about it. Because if you are going out and you have had 3 or 4 days of being barraged with this fucking defensive, negative talk of how you're playing this super force and you're not good enough and you've just got to stick to your task, that's all you've got to do, stay in your place, don't let them through. Maybe that is why Kudus snatched at his chance. Maybe that's why he didn't take a touch like a player who should be brimming with confidence. Like he should be with the start to the Premier League that he's had. He should have, momentum should be crazy for Kudus. He should be really believing in himself. But he did, he snatched at it. I'm pretty certain in another game in the Premier League with less pressure, he takes a touch, he buries that. Or he at least, doesn't roll it into the keeper's arms. And another thing as well, look, I've seen so many people defending Moyes across social media. And instead of attacking him, they're attacking our big players. We saw it on our show last night in the chat, such as Paqueta for not single-handedly winning us that game. And they'll do that. They'll have a go at Paqueta. They'll have a go at Kudus. They'll mark them down. They'll ignore that James Ward-Prowse is even on the pitch, by the way. They'll go, Paqueta, free, dog shit, get him off. But they'll completely ignore the likes of James Ward-Prowse. They won't even mention him. Do you know why? Because he's largely irrelevant and nobody expects anything of him. But that's fine, I get that. But then why do you do that and then absolve David Moyes of all and any fucking blame? That will never, ever, I'll never be able to get that through my head. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is that these fans have had their expectations, like these players, lowered to such an extent that Moyes has mind-fucked them. To the same extent that he did to that team, that he must have done to that team in the build-up to that game, where he's instilling fear and inferiority. That can be all it is. I mean, look, let's have it straight, right? That weren't even a low block. I don't even know what that was that we played yesterday. We played 2 of the deepest banks of 5 that you're ever going to see. And the entire game plan from the first minute was damage limitation. And that was demonstrated by the defensive sub when we went 1-0, It was purely to protect a 1-0 defeat. It sickens me to even think about it now. Moyes, if we're honest, and if Moyes is honest, he didn't believe that we could beat Leverkusen, and he did not prepare to beat them. He just prepared to not lose badly. That's all it is. He's got his quarter-final. That's his achievement. He can say 3 years and 3 quarter-finals. He just doesn't want to get a whipping because he doesn't back himself. He don't back his team. Oh. And people cry about the lack of depth, right? They cry about the lack of depth and point to Leverkusen's bench. Well, we had injuries. Look at Leverkusen's bench. That's why we didn't win. But they refuse to accept that this squad is what it is because of Moyes. It's thin as shit because of Moyes. He can only keep 11 to 13 players happy over the course of any season. He refuses to rotate. And look, he ostracises any player that is not part of his tight-knit inner circle. He does. He's first teamers, the ones whose positions are untouchable. And that results in disillusionment. We saw it in this last window with Fornals and Benrahma. In before that, Skamaka, Haller, Anderson. The list is as long as your arm. It's always going to be a revolving door of players. We're always going to be in a constant state of rebuild because David Moyes can only keep 11 to 13 players happy. He's only interested in keeping 11 to 13 players happy. And it's just... And when you look at some of these players as well, if you look at Fornals, who's got a ridiculously high average rating at the moment for Betis, it's about 7.5 over the course of all of his games. He's really performing for them. If you look at Scamacca scoring 2 at Anfield, Haller scored in the Champions League, and Anderson, remember the bloke who we let go for 3 million? Well, he's on the verge of a big move to Juventus now, I just don't understand how David Sullivan or anyone else or any of these fans or any of these pundits can look at this and go, what the fuck's going on? Something surely isn't right. David Moyes can't get the best out of these players. And the fact is, this small squad, thin squad that people keep pointing to, he said time and time again, he said he likes to work with a small squad. This is by design. It's 4 years in the making. 4 years, 500 million spent to have the oldest and the smallest squad in the league that still somehow has the 7th highest fucking wage bill. And do you know what? Even though this squad, it's small and we've got injuries and we've got suspensions to deal with, we've given our teenagers, and not just any teenagers, by the way, the best crop of kids in the league that they cleaned up last season. We've given them just 75 minutes of Premier League football this season, which is the 15th lowest in the league. Brighton are up there with something like 3,500 minutes or something. It's obscene. And the failings in this January window, they're directly attributed to Moyes. They are. He was refusing players. Even his biggest fan, the biggest gaslighter of them all, Sean Whetstone, he said on the More Than Just a podcast that David Moyes was offered player after player after player after player, and he refused every single one of them, insisting that the only player he needed to see out the rest of this season was Calvin Phillips, and if at all possible, Harry Maguire. He wanted Harry Maguire, but Calvin Phillips was the main one. That was all he wanted. Didn't want a left winger because his plan was to store Paqueta out on the left wing. If we went and got a left winger, the likes of Zaha or someone equivalent to him, that means that Paqueta's got to move inside. Alvarez has to play, so that's Paqueta and Alvarez, and that means there's only one space for either James Ward-Prowse, Souček or Phillips. He was never going to have it. So this shitty bench that we've got that people keep on pointing to, and this lack of depth and the fact that we're going to be missing Bowen now and we're missing Paqueta, this is down to David Moyes. He doesn't plan. He's a weak manager. He's an archaic dinosaur, let's face it. Look, he's a grifter. Blagged his way through, in my opinion. That's all he's done. And I think he's always had this ridiculous over-reliance on a world-class talent as well. He has. Declan Rice carried him for years in the first instance. We had Jesse Lingard come in and turn into Messi for a period of games. That started our European journey. That kind of propelled us and pushed us over the line to get into Europe in the first instance. And this 3 years in Europe line, it's so tiring. It is so tiring. And it's false as well. Well, it's not false. We've had 3 years in Europe. But the only reason we've achieved 3 straight years in Europe is due to the fact that in the last 3 years, European places, they've dropped down to 7th place. They have. When we failed in the Europa League and we went out with a whimper to Frankfurt last time, we finished 7th. In a normal season prior to that, we would never have qualified for Europe again. But we did because this new Europa Conference League thing appeared. So now we've got that. We've gone into the Conference League. We won the Conference League, which has got us our 3rd season in Europe. But the Conference League, it was a walk in the park. It was a walk in the park. We were shit last season. We had a 35-game relegation battle in the Premier League, competing at the top end. We couldn't compete, and that's with Paqueta and Rice in the middle, 2 of the best players in the Premier League. We had a 35-game relegation battle, and when you look back to that Newcastle game where we got thrashed right towards the end of the season, most fans thought we was going to get relegated. It was all on this Europa League, and he had a free run the entire way to that final. And yes, we got over the line, we won it. That got us our 3rd successive year in Europe. So we've done it. We've got in there, but not through not in a normal fashion, because people are saying that it's taken us to new levels, to another level. No, we've always been at this level. We've always been in or around 7th place. Glenn Roeder finished 7th. He finished 7th. I think the only difference now is that to achieve a similar height to what we've achieved before, because we have, next level for West Ham would be Champions League. This isn't next level. The only difference is now to achieve what we've always achieved before, we've now got to have our enjoyment completely stripped away from us. We've got to accept non-football, no entertainment on a match day, nothing at all, because that's all we deserve. We're being mind-fucked by the media. We are. They're literally saying that this style of football is all that West Ham fans are worthy of, and that we should stay in our boxes and kiss the feet of this useless piece of shit. And I'm not being funny, not on my watch. It ain't going to happen. I'm going to keep banging this drum until that man has been forcibly removed from this club. I'm going to. So, look, that's it. That's all I want to say. Come on, you ones. And fuck off, Moyes. Roll on to the end of the season. Get your heads.